Hello, my name's Mabel, and I'm 30 years old. I recently came into a large fortune, and that made me see the ugly side of my husband. Today, I want to tell you all about it and how I unintentionally got revenge on two people at once. Let me start off by introducing myself a little more. I grew up away from my grandparents, but we were still very close. I remember that every 3 to 4 months, they would come over to our place just to spend time with me. I was the closest to my grandmother. I was the apple of her eye, and she never ceased to spoil me. My grandfather passed away when I was 17, and I was devastated. My grandmother didn't take it well either. I loved her dearly, and so when it was time for me to go to college, I chose to attend college in her state so I could be closer to her. It was at college that I met my ex-husband, Toby. Toby and I started dating when we were in our junior year, and we had a pretty good relationship. Toby was everything that I was looking for in a partner, which was why I continued my relationship with him even after we graduated. We got engaged a few months after graduating, but decided to wait until we were in a stable financial situation to get married. In the meantime, since I lived in a better apartment, Toby moved in with me. While my relationship with Toby was great, the one person who I could not seem to get along with was his sister, Julia. Julia didn't live in the same state as us because she moved with her husband when he got a better job, but she still doted on Toby a lot, to the point where she was often obsessive about him. She hated me the second she met me. I guess she thought that I was stealing her baby brother from her. Anyways, she had always been rude and unaccommodating. The only reason I ever let her get away with anything when she came to visit us was because she would bring over her daughter, Viola. Viola and I got along really well ever since she was a baby. She only seemed to like being with me, and I enjoyed it. Julia was glad to have some time to herself, but that did not stop her from being mean to me. Toby never stood up for me because he loved his sister too much to hurt her. I didn't want to cause any rifts between them, so I just shut up and dealt with it. About 3 years after we got engaged, Toby and I were doing well enough, so we decided to get married. It was an amazing day, and yes, I'll even say that now. Everything was going great until 4 years after we got married. 2 major things happened. The first was that my grandmother passed away. I was heartbroken and honestly could not do much during that time. I inherited about $1 million in money and assets combined, but none of that mattered to me because my grandmother was gone. The second thing that happened was that Julia and her family moved back into town. Suddenly, Toby was no longer at home. He was almost always over at Julia's, or when he was at home, Julia was here once again. The only thing keeping me sane was the fact that I got to spend time with Viola. I was still grieving the loss of my grandmother, and Toby was barely there. I tried to talk to him about it, but he didn't seem to care until one day he came back home directly after work and was alone, a pretty rare occasion. "Hey, sweetie, how was your day?" It was pretty good. What about you?" "Oh, same old. I went to meet Julia, and we got to talking. You seem to be visiting Julia a lot. You know, we're really close. I miss her, and I guess I just feel better when I'm around her. Anyways, do you not want to know what we talked about?" "Yeah, sure, tell me." "Well, I was telling her that we were planning on buying a house." "I'm going to cut you off right there. I never agreed to that. Just listen to me. Julia asked me how I had the funds for it, and I told her all about your inheritance, and she suggested that it would actually be a great investment for us to make." "And why is that?" "I mean, you have more than enough money to almost fully purchase a house. I really think that we should invest in it. We'll be well settled for the rest of our lives. But I want to invest my money in some better place. What's better than securing a house for ourselves? I can think of several better things that can at least be put to use for our future. I don't want to spend all my money on one thing, you know. It's like you're trying to tell me that your money is yours and not mine to begin with. Well, it kind of is. I get to decide what I want to do with it, and you have no say in it. Look, you either invest your money in something for the both of us, or I'm leaving. Where would you leave? You're literally begging me to buy a house with my money for your future. If you choose to leave, that's going to be your loss. Oh, so you're okay with me leaving you all because you want to keep your money to yourself? Don't try and act as if that was what I was saying, Toby. You're the one threatening to leave me if I don't spend on you. You're the one who brought it up. Yes, because I thought you loved me and you wanted to spend your future with me. Forgive me for looking out for us. You're really bad at whatever you're trying to do here. I'm keeping my money and I get to decide where and how I spend it. Fine, but could you at least think about spending it on a house for us? Sure. I wasn't sure why Toby was being so adamant about buying the house, but something did not seem right to me, which was why I knew that I had to stand my ground. Toby began to distance himself from me after that conversation. He began to spend even more time at Julia's place. Julia stopped coming over other than to drop Viola off whenever she needed me to babysit her. I tried to talk to Toby on multiple occasions and asked him what was wrong, but he always brushed me off and told me there was nothing wrong. Eventually, I gave up and figured that I'd just wait until he was ready to talk. However, things took a turn when one day Julia dropped Viola off at my place for me to babysit her. Hey, Viola, how's my favorite niece doing? I'm your only niece, still my favorite, though. I hope I'll always be your favorite. Of course you will be. Anyways, what do you want to do today? I was thinking we could go get our nails done and then get some ice cream. Yay, can I paint my nails pink? Of course you can. And can I get strawberry ice cream? Why can't you? We'll get you everything you want. I only have one niece, and if I don't spoil her, would I really be her aunt? You know you're my favorite aunt. I really will miss you. Miss me, sweetie. What do you mean? I'm not going anywhere. Are you sure? Yes, of course. Where do you think I'll be going? Well, it's just that. What is it? You can tell me anything. I swear I won't tell anyone else a word. Okay, well, I heard Mommy and Uncle talking the other day. Uncle is in Uncle Toby. Yeah, Mommy said she's going to help Uncle with getting some cases. Case. What are you talking about? They kept talking about some cases that would give them some money, and then she told Uncle that he would have a nice big house after he left. You what? Oh my God, sweetie, when did you hear about this? Well, I heard about this like 2 days ago. Are you sure you heard correctly? Yes, I'm sure that I heard correctly. As soon as Mommy saw that I was listening to them, she yelled at me to go to my room. She also told me not to tell you anything about her talk with her uncle, but I only told you because you're my favorite aunt. Thank you so much, sweetie. Now enough of this. Let's go out and have a fun day. I tried my best to go about the rest of the day as if I didn't hear what Viola told me. I could tell that she felt bad for telling me, but I let her know that she did nothing wrong. I spoiled her in the same way that I always did, and when it came time to go back home, I made her promise me that she wouldn't tell her mom or Toby what she told me. Viola promised not to say a word and hugged me goodbye after Julia picked her up from my place. I felt panic rising in my chest. I knew something was wrong with Toby, but for him to try and trick me into spending my money on him was a new low. It was something I would have never expected from him. So I did the only thing I could think of and called Toby's father, Edgar, who was a lawyer. Now, I didn't know why I called him considering he could have been in on Toby and Julia's plan, but I had a feeling in my gut that he was a good man. Besides, he never failed to treat me like a princess when I was over at his place and always put Julia in her place whenever she tried to bully me. Edgar picked up the call in the same manner he always did. "Hello, darling, to what do I owe this phone call?" "Hi, Edgar. How are you?" "Oh, I'm doing quite well. What about you?" I actually don't know. I called because I need your help." "My help? What could I help you with? Isn't Toby around?" "He is, but he kind of is the problem." "Oh no. I always told that boy to treat you right because it's really hard to come by women as amazing as you." "Thank you, Edgar. You may be the only one in your family that thinks of me as amazing." "What are you talking about?" "Well, I was babysitting Viola the other day, and she told me that Toby and Julia were planning something against me." "Against you? What do you mean?" "Well, she didn't know the specifics, but there is a case involved. Apparently, they plan on taking money from me." "What in God's name are you telling me?" "I also don't know what's going on. I'm worried, and I figured I'd come to you for help, considering you're a lawyer. You did a great job of coming to me. Now tell me, do you believe Viola?" "I do, and only because in the past few months, Toby has begun to draw away from me. I tried to talk to him about it, but he never took me seriously." "All right, and why do you think Julia is involved?" "Well, ever since she moved back, they began to spend a lot of time together. And yeah, I get it. They were living far apart for years before, and it made sense. But then, in the past few months, he was going over to her house for hours every single day. That's a little weird. Did something happen a few months ago that triggered Toby's weird reaction?" I got my grandmother's inheritance because she passed away. It was quite a large amount of money. Toby wanted to use it to buy a house, but I was a little hesitant about it. After that, he's been weird, right? My guess is that they're going to try and get your money. First of all, I'm so worried that my children are doing this to you. This was not how I raised them. Secondly, why don't you drop by my office tomorrow, and we'll hash this out properly?" "That sounds great, and you have nothing to apologize for. You're clearly a good man. Thank you for helping me out. I don't know what I would do without you." I was genuinely really grateful that Edgar was helping me out. I did not think that he would side with me over his children, but I was glad that he did. The next day, I took a day off from work and made my way over to his office. Once there, Edgar apologized once again to Toby and Julia, but I told him to just help me navigate around this. We figured that Toby was going to ask for a divorce, so the first order of business was to contact all the reputed divorce lawyers in our city and ask for advice. This would then limit Toby's access to good lawyers because there would be a conflict of interest, considering they already knew my side. The next thing we had to figure out was how they planned to take my inheritance from me. Thankfully, I had been smart enough to keep my inheritance money in a separate bank account and did not use it to buy Toby or me things at all. I did plan on buying Toby some luxury items that he'd always wanted, but clearly that was never going to happen since there was no other way for them to get that money from me. Edgar and I figured that they were going to outright steal from me. The only thing I could control then would be providing them with the perfect setup so I could catch them. You see, I had a top-of-the-line security system installed inside my apartment because I was paranoid about break-ins. This was a fact that Toby knew and agreed to when he moved in. The next thing I had to do was slightly let Toby know that my bank details were logged in on my laptop. That wasn't hard to do. I just had to pretend to have bank troubles that he could help me with. Lastly, I told Toby that I was going to meet a friend on the weekend, leaving him home alone. I then met Edgar, who would serve as a witness and would corroborate my alibi. In the middle of our conversation, I got a notification that money had been transferred from my account to Toby and I's joint account. I called the police and reported it. When I got back from meeting Edgar, Toby was sitting in the dining room and asked me to sit with him. We need to talk. Oh, about what? About us? Okay, we're not working out. I agree. You agree? What do you mean? Well, for starters, I did not like how you threatened to end the relationship over money. Something I would have spent on us had you not done that. I didn't think that you would. Oh, and that's another point. You think so lowly of me, and I don't think that's a sign of a good partner. Like as if you've been a good partner. You've been selfish since the start, and I only bore with it because I loved you. How in the world was I selfish? I helped you pay off your student loans first instead of mine. I helped you out for a whole year when you didn't have a job. I sacrificed so much to make sure that you were happy. The few times that I didn't do what you wanted, I became a selfish monster to you. Don't act like what you did was some righteous thing. I would have done the same for you. Would you? You never helped me out when I was sick. Why would I think that you would have sacrificed your comfort for me when I really needed it? You're just trying to make me feel bad. No, and my last reason for not wanting to be with you is that I don't want to be with a lying, manipulative thief. What are you saying? Don't think I don't know about what you and Julia have been planning. I saw you transfer money out of my account into our joint account. I know that you wanted to be able to split that during the divorce. No, don't even bother. I know about everything. You are a pathetic man, and I see no reason to be with you. Oh well, I'll still get half of what I transferred into our account. I still win. Will you? If I recall correctly, I had security cameras installed in my apartment, and you made that transaction from my laptop. At a time when I wasn't at home, I've already reported you for theft. The police should be here any time soon. You did what? Oh, here they come. Good luck. I'll see you in court. The relief I felt of finally seeing Toby pay for his actions was unparalleled. The following weeks were a nightmare of courtroom sessions and evidence viewing. Along with the charges of theft against him, I also filed for a divorce. Edgar was my lawyer and fought long and hard to ensure that Toby paid properly for his crime. Edgar won the case for me, and Toby was sentenced to 2 years in jail and was also fined an additional $30,000. Nothing was sweeter than the taste of revenge. Just as Edgar and I were celebrating our victory, Julia came up to us. Julia had conveniently been absent during all the previous trials and only chose to show up on the day of the verdict. That, in itself, spoke volumes about her. But when she approached us, she looked angry and pointed her finger at Edgar. Dad, you were helping this witch. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't have helped Mabel, Julia said. I don't know, because she literally put your brother in jail and he deserved his sentence. That will make him think twice before trying to steal from someone again, Edgar replied. How could you do that to your own son? Julia retorted. How could you do that to your own brother? Don't think I did not see the real reason behind your plan. You were going to help Toby get the money so you could also reap the benefits of it, I interjected. I was trying to give him a break from this jerk here. You have no idea how toxic she is for him, Julia exclaimed. I don't think she was the toxic one, Julia. You were a bad influence on him, and he was stupid enough to fall for your little game. He's getting the punishment he deserves, and maybe now he'll think twice before ever listening to you, Edgar said firmly. You know you're going to lose him this way. He will never talk to you again, Julia accused. Good, because I have no children as far as I'm concerned. Edgar responded coldly. Don't be so dramatic. I'll be here. But I'm not happy with the way you treated my baby brother, Julia retorted. As far as I'm concerned, neither you nor your brother are my children, because I know for a fact that this is not how I raise my kids, Edgar declared. What are you talking about? Julia asked. What I'm saying is that I'm disowning both of you. And I want nothing to do with either of you, Edgar asserted. You can't do that, Julia protested. I actually can, and I'm going to do just that. This is all Mabel's fault. If she just thought of someone other than herself for a second, this would not have been happening, Edgar stated firmly. No, you should not have been so greedy. I was going to spoil Toby with all the things he wanted, but you had to interfere. You took away everything from him, Julia accused. And I hope you sit and think long and hard about what you did to your brother. Goodbye, Edgar said, grabbing my hand as we left. We couldn't help but let out a chuckle at what had happened. I was happy that Toby got what he deserved and that I was going to be free of his manipulative ways. I was also happy to see Edgar take my side. I did feel bad that it was because of me that he had lost both of his children, but he assured me that it was their own decisions that led to that. I took him out for coffee afterward, and we've maintained a good friendship ever since. Julia harassed me a bunch over text, and Edgar took it upon himself to tell Julia and her husband to leave me alone. Now, this is where I unintentionally got revenge on Julia as well. You see, Julia's husband had no idea about Julia's involvement in what happened between Toby and me. So he called Edgar and asked him what happened, and was shocked to learn about what Julia had done. Apparently, their marriage had been in the dumps for a while because of Julia's constant nagging, that he never brought home enough money while simultaneously refusing to work. He did not like that she would go to such lengths and asked for a divorce, of course. He also asked for full custody of Viola and managed to get almost full custody. Julia got custody for every other weekend. Not to mention she didn't get much through that divorce either, considering that he had her sign an ironclad prenup before marriage. Julia only received a small amount of alimony for a set period of time, and she was kicked out of their house. Once again, she blamed it all on me. And if I'm being completely honest, I was a little happy to see the way she got what she deserved. She tried to meddle in someone else's life, and she paid the ultimate price for it. Not to mention, I got to see Viola still because she loved me, and Julia's ex-husband could not say no to Viola. He was very apologetic for what Julia did, but I reminded him that he had no idea, so he had nothing to apologize for. And before you ask, yes, I am spoiling Viola senseless. As for me, my life is only getting better. I got a promotion at work and also decided to hire an accountant to help manage all my finances. I have invested my money in a few places, and it's only a matter of time before I get my returns on those. Getting to where I am today took a lot of struggle, but let me tell you, the view from where I'm at is one that I'm loving. I have a better understanding of people, and I'm going to be a lot more cautious. Thank you for your time.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. "Meetings should be for employees only." "Absolutely right." After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.